want us to do that, to know the benefits of ilm al-mustalah. Ilm al-mustalah, the benefit of this knowledge, which is the knowledge that verifies the hadith, and it used two tools to verify the hadith: ثبوتها عن النبي وثبوت دلالتها عن الحديث. So two things. This knowledge is using two tools, or it's verifying to come from two things. Number one is what was said. Is it from the Prophet ﷺ, directly from his mouth, or what was said is a proof for the action that you want to prove, or for the statement you want to prove. So this is ثبوتها عن النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام, ثبوت دلالته عن الحكم. So this one can focus on who the Prophet was, how he used to look, what he used to dress, what he used to, and all those things. So it give you all those things, right? So these two things you have to always, like this knowledge is focusing on this. What was said about the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, is that authentic? And if it is authentic, can that be used as a proof for certain things, right? So the knowledge will, because you will want to prove something, but this knowledge will tell you no, you cannot, because this is not proving this correct or wrong. That's knowledge is verifying that, and it's this from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam also. Okay. Now, yes. So, and then where's the abiyat? Then you go. Now we go to Aqsam al-Hadith, right? We did it two. Now it will go. ثم علم أن علم الحديث ينقسم إلى قسمين. So now the mustalah is focusing on two things: their statement, and to use that statement as a proof. But that knowledge is divided. That knowledge of hadith is divided into two categories, into two sections. So ilm al-riwayah and ilm al-dirayah. Ilm al-riwayah and ilm al-dirayah. So ilm al-riwayah فعلم الحديث رواية يبحث عما ينقل عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من أقواله وأفعاله وأحواله ويبحث فيما ينقل لا في النقل. Okay? So علم الحديث رواية, علم الحديث دراية. So علم الحديث رواية is narration. The knowledge of hadith about in narrations, right? So, what's it? حيث ثبوت عن النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام, right? So here it says, it is a knowledge that يبحث, investigate, verifies, authenticate. عما ينقل, نقل is what was taken from, what was received from the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, min aqwalihi, from his statements, wa af'alihi, and his actions, wa ahwalihi, and his conditions. So ilm al-hadith riwayatan, right? The first category focus only on what was narrated. Naqala means naqala, coded from naqala in Arabic linguistically, from this to his. Naqala al-jawwala min huna ila huna. He moved the cell phone from here to here. So what was moved from the Prophet ﷺ to us? Yes. In his statements, his actions, and his conditions. Right? Yes. So what, or you can refer, because of now it's a riwayat. What was brought to us, what we get from the Prophet ﷺ. In his action, his three things: his statements, his actions, and his condition. Ilm riwayah.
So the condition is?
The condition is ahwal. The way he used to dress, tall, short, how he used to look, and his condition, his house, his camel's name, his donkey's name, and all those things. So that is conditions, his life. So all that, ilm al-hadith riwayatan, that is the focus on that. That knowledge is focused on that. So whenever you hear ilm al-hadith riwayatan, it's focusing on three things: his statements, actions, and his condition. If somebody comes and says the Prophet ﷺ was tall, what will as ahwal? That the Prophet ﷺ used to wear imama. That's his condition, right? But if he said the Prophet ﷺ said, that's about his aqwal, his statements. If he said the Prophet ﷺ married this much wives, that is his actions. His actions. So anything that concerning the Prophet ﷺ, statement, action, condition, all his life was about these three things. Either he said something, or he did something, or he was in a position of something. Yes, that's condition. Okay? So the hadith that is verifying that, to make sure that it's authentic, is ilm al-hadithi riwayatan. Okay? So riwayatan is just another way of saying thubutu an nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. That was confirmed on the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Right? So min haythu al-dalala, right? Min haythu al-dalala. So he's giving mithal. It's Ibn Uthaymin, right? He's always giving mithal. So mithaluhu is the example of it, right? The example of Ibn Uthaymin is a good thing about his teachings. You may understand his statement, but you may not be able to understand it in example. So he gives an example. He said, إِذَا جَاءَنَا حَدِيثٌ إِذَا جَاءَنَا
comes to us.
Ja'ana comes to us. Hadithun, a hadith. If we receive a hadith, عن النبي عليه, you can say من النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام also, but عن النبي عليه more appropriate. So من النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام, عن النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام, all is correct. فإننا نبحث, he said فإننا, we are obligated to verify فيه, in this hadith, هل هو, هل is other istifham, هل هو, is it قول, a statement, أو فعل, or an action, or أو حال, or a condition. So any hadith that we receive from the Prophet ﷺ, we are obligated to verify.
As nabhath.
Huh?
As nabhath.
Nabhath, search.
Search.
Bahath, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, ibhath. Search, find, look, verify, search, all of it.
Okay.
فإننا نبحث, we will verify. فيه, in this hadith. This is فيه في الحديث. This damir, they call it pronoun.
Yep.
This pronoun is going back to the hadith. So the research goes where? To the hadith. فإننا, we will, it's kind of complicated. You know, subhanAllah, in our language is فإننا,
Like most certain.
you can translate it the way it is, like this.
Yes.
But in English you cannot.
Same here.
So فإننا, فإننا نبحث, we will search فيه, in the hadith. هل هو, is this hadith قول, a statement, أو فعل, or action, أو حال, or a condition. نعم. وهل يدل على كذا أو لا يدل, or is this hadith indicates this or that, or is this hadith evidence of this or that, okay, or is this hadith an indication of confirming this or disconfirming something.
Denying something.
Yes, so if it is a statement, it's going to be either confirming or rejecting. If it is action also, it's the same thing, right? Confirming something or rejecting it, right? And also if it is a condition also, it can be like he's silent about somebody doing something. That's hal. So this was done by in front of Prophet ﷺ. He didn't say yes, he didn't say no. So his condition, we'll learn his condition. What was his condition at that moment? He was silent. And if he was silent, then that's a confirmation. That's a confirmation. because it's haram for him sallallahu alaihi wasallam to be silent on something that is wrong. So his silence also is a confirmation. So also that is also a condition. Okay. For example, hal is ra'aytu Abdullah mubtasiman. I saw Abdullah smiling. So you are describing Abdullah's condition when you saw him. So if a Sahaba say رأيت النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام عندما كان فلان يفعل هذا وهذا وهذا وساكت. I saw the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام quiet when so and so was doing so and so. Right? That means that he confirms it. So here he didn't. This sunnah here, this riwayah here, is not an action. It's not a statement. It's a condition of the Prophet عليه الصلاة. Or you say, رأيت النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام على ناقته. Right? I saw the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام on top of his camel. That means that you confirm that the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام rode a camel, right? Or, or in his donkey. What was his camel name?
Qaswa.
Naam, Qaswa. What was his camel? And his donkey?
I don't know what's that mean.
Ghufayr. So, where we are. So now, فَهَذَا هُوَ عِلْمُ الْحَدِيثِ رِوَايَةً. He said, only this is the knowledge of hadith riwayatan. Right? So then what about let's just link knowledge of hadith with the definition, with the legal definition. علم الحديث riwayatan is the knowledge that verifies the hadith. Is this a condition on action or a statement? That's علم الحديث riwayatan. فهذا, he said, this example and his definition, it is علم الحديث, the knowledge of hadith riwayatan, which is the first section, right? وموضوعه البحث في ذات النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام. The subject of this knowledge is to verify the ذات النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام. Whatever was attached to the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. His action was attached to him, right? His condition was attached to him, right? His statement was attached to him. So about him, that, when you say Dhatullah, I don't know how they translate it.
We had to translate it in Aqeedah class too. I don't know.
Yeah. Dhatuhu, like, your body, right? That is your body. But I cannot say Allah's body, right? So, but I can say Dhatul Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. That is you and whatever comes from you.
Okay. It's like, I don't know. We don't have a word for that.
Yeah. So in our language, we said Jimma. Yaram is your body, but Jimma is his appearance, but more than just appearance.
Personality or?
It's also, personality is more specific but that is, I'm sure they're going to have a translation for it. You can say about him.
Being, essence, nature, person.
His essence. His essence, right?
Yes.
But that can be used as a legal term for this?
I think so.
I don't know.
Yeah, his
Or
essence.
nature.
Yes, his essence, his nature.
Yeah.
His essence, his nature. Yes, his nature.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. If in Dhatullah, his nature, that's what it is.
Yes.
Dhatullah, his Allah's nature. Yes. So his nature. So Ilm al-Hadith riwayatan verifies what was said about the Prophet alayhi salatu nature. Right? وَمَا يَصْدُرُ عَنْ هَذِهِ الذَّاتِ مِنْ أَقْوَالٍ. Actually.
I'll just explain a little more.
Yes. So he said, the Prophet himself, as a person, this knowledge is verifying who the Prophet is as a person, his origin, his nature, who he is, right? And whatever comes out of him. وَمَا يَصْدُرُ عَنْ هَذِهِ الذَّاتِ, and whatever comes from this body, from his nature,
The nature of him.
from his nature, whatever comes from him. نعم. من أقوال وأفعال وأحوال, from statements, actions, and also conditions. ومن الأفعال الإقرار. I just said that right now, but I put in a condition. But he put it in the أفعال. So it's ومن الأفعال الإقرار. He said part of the action is al-iqrar. is a confirmation of something, right? فإنه يعتبر فعلا. يعتبر, even though some of the ulama they said يعتبر حالا, but ومن الأفعال, one of the actions or some of the actions are considered confirmation, or some of the confirmation, a confirmation is considered فعلا, action. وأما الأحوال فهي صفاته كالطول والقصر واللون والغضب والفرح وما أشبه ذلك. Yeah, they will always have problem with these ones. وأما الأحوال, he said, as for the conditions, فهي, it is صفاته, his appearance, كالطول, like كالطول, like
height.
tall,
Height.
Oh, yeah, height.
like height,
القصري.
al-qasr.
His tallness and his shortness.
His tallness and yes, because when you say height, then
Height is the whole.
his whole thing. So his tallness and his shortness, واللون, and his color, his ghadab, his anger, and describing his anger or describing his happiness, وما أشبه ذلك, and something that, you know, related to this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here, so we can abandon what I said and come back to what he said. So he said the ahwal, the condition is limited, according is limited, or the condition, what he meant about the condition here is his height, tall, short, or his color, he was white or was black or was brown or he was whatever, and also describing him, was he angry in this position or in this situation or on this day, or was he happy, how happy he was, how did he smile, and all those things, and anything related to that. Does he, you know, wearing an imama, and how he used to walk, you know, and how he used to sit, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So all this is part of the ahwal. Okay. أما علم, so this is the علم الحديث رواية. علم الحديث رواية. So it is the knowledge that verifies about, if it is not the Prophet about about Zakaria, how his hair looks like, you know, was he tall or was he short, right? What he used to wear, for example, and all those things is علم الحديث رواية, right? Should we stop there or we bring the dirayatan?
Yes, bring. Yes, dirayatan.
Okay. So now understand علم الحديث رواية. Riwayah, علم الحديث riwayah is the knowledge that verifies. If somebody said the Prophet ﷺ was this, what will verify that? Is علم الحديث رواية. Okay. Now أما علم الحديث دراية فهو علم يبحث فيه عن أحوال الراوي والمروي من حيث القبول والرد. So that knowledge doesn't focus on what was narrated from the Prophet ﷺ, but the narrator himself. The narrator himself. So علم يبحث فيه عن أحوال الراوي. It's a knowledge that we verify, or a knowledge that in which the rawi, the narrator is being والمروي, the narrator is being verified, investigated, verified. والمروي, and what was narrated من حيث القبول والرد. Two things. Here is just what attached to the Prophet ﷺ, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but the narrator narrates something from Prophet ﷺ. So, is this narrator, is this narration accepted by this narrator? Right? This is the knowledge, dirayatan.
Oh, okay.
So, علم الحديث دراية. Diraya mean knowledge.
Oh, knowledge. Okay.
Knowledge. So it is a knowledge of the person who narrates and what he narrated.
Okay.
Is this, the knowledge will tell you what this person narrated and himself, is this subject to be accepted or to be rejected? من حيث القبول والرد. من حيث, is it subject to be accepted, قبول?
Like it
والرد.
verifies his like qualifications and
Yes,
how he was.
yes, it verifies the person who narrates.
Right.
Okay, if is he truthful?
Right.
Did he lie? Did he? To a point that, okay, this person, if he narrates something, can be accepted.
والمروي. What does that mean?
What he narrated.
What he narrated?
What was
Okay.
narrated.
So that's the hadith.
So the guy is a narrator.
Mm-hmm.
What he narrated is the hadith, right? So this knowledge will tell you, not just now this kind of like mixing on this one, right?
Yeah.
But this one is attached to the person who narrated. So before the narration comes, we verify, was the Prophet tall? Who narrated that?
Mm-hmm.
The narrator.
The narrator. So the narrator will be investigated because he narrated something.
Mm-hmm.
So the person himself will be investigated,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what he narrated will be investigated, right?
Mm-hmm.
So together, that investigation will determine, is this something that will be accepted or be rejected?
So you will learn in this ilm, in this
And will be right.
ilm. We'll teach you that.
Yes.
So are you still looking at what's being narrated if it's also?
So, okay, let me explain. Now, two things. Ilm al-Hadith riwayatan will teach you only, okay, the Prophet
أفعال, أقوال, أحوال.
yes, the Prophet alayhi salam was like this. What he's not giving in narration. He give you that the Prophet alayhi salam was tall, don't forget. ثبوت عن النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام ثبوت دلالة عن الحكم.
Mm-hmm.
So it was confirmed. It's from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. How can we use it as a hukum? Because of the narrator who narrated it, right?
What?
So, yeah. So the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam was, his beard was big, right? Good. Now that is a hal, right? His beard was tall. That is a hal. That's it. So the ilm al-hadith riwayatan will come and say and make their own learning, their own finding.
Mm-hmm.
The Prophet alayhi beard was tall, right? Was big. Now, that is something that's different.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever tool they use, they may even learn the one who narrated, but that's different.
Mm-hmm.
Now, ilm al-hadith riwayatan will only focus on, okay, they said the Prophet's beard was tall. Who said it? It's Abdullah who said it. Who Abdullah is. We'll verify Abdullah, and whatever Abdullah narrated, whatsoever, if Abdullah is not trustworthy, then whatever Abdullah narrated will not be accepted, will be rejected. But that what he narrated can be accepted in another way.
Mm-hmm.
In another way. So, but Abdullah will be cancelled
That's just for
as a good narrator.
Okay.
So they will try to find what he narrated. If
Abdullah
somebody else-
narrated 10 hadith.
Okay.
How many hadith Abdullah narrated? 10.
10.
So we'll learn about Abdullah and we'll learn everything he narrated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
So okay.
So when you put Abdullah, identify Abdullah. You need to tell us how many hadith Abdullah narrated.
That's it.
That's Marwi.
That's Marwi.
That's Marwi. How many he narrated?
Like what he narrated.
Okay, what he narrated.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So who Abdullah is, that's dirayatan.
Mm-hmm.
What he narrated is dirayatan. Right? And then we already have the knowledge that only focus on, not on rijal or anything, focus on what was narrated. What was narrated.
Mm-hmm.
So now the other thing that will come is, can we take this, what was narrated, through Abdullah or not? Or do we need another person to take it or not? You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say,
That's on Diraya, right?
dirayah, yes. Let's say the hadith, Muhammad, right? And then the hadith has two chains, right? You have Abdullah here. You have Abdul Rahman here, right? You have Hakim. You have Hakim here, right? So then we are here, right? So we have one person here. So Abdullah narrated from this person. This narrated from this person. This narrated from this person, right? And they narrated from Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. So now let's say Abdullah, for example, and Ibrahim, for example. But Ibrahim was accused or was suspected of something. So Abdullah narrated his hadith. We look at Abdullah. Abdullah is correct. Okay, we need to move to another. Where did he
Where
get
do you
this
get it
hadith from?
from?
So he get this hadith from Ibrahim. Oh, Ibrahim has a problem.
Mm.
So that will determine, is this hadith going to be accepted من حيث القبول والرد? Is this hadith going to be accepted or rejected? Why? Because this knowledge is teaching us who Abdullah is.
Yeah.
Right? And if we know who Abdullah is, we need to know what Abdullah narrated.
Mm.
So the knowledge only focus on, okay, what Abdullah narrated, and Abdullah himself, we learn him a lot to a point that we will determine what he narrated will be accepted or be rejected.
So basically, riwayatan is what the hadith, the actual hadith.
The actual hadith.
Dirayatan is the person, and then just what he narrated.
narrated.
Not the exacts of the hadith.
No,
just what
not
he narrated.
the riwayat is all the riwayat.
Mm-hmm.
All what was narrated by the Prophet ﷺ, right?
Mm-hmm.
Aqwal, af'al, and ahwal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now, that wasn't narrated by one person.
Yeah.
So many,
It wasn't by so many people, right? So we divided into two. We know exactly that what this was said by the Prophet ﷺ, right? So that hadith will summarize, will put all the hadith in one box, right? So the Dirayatan will come and say, okay, how did you get this hadith? Through Abdullah. Let's see how can we confirm that this is authentic from Abdullah, from Prophet ﷺ. We see Abdullah is correct, that's ilm diraya. How much he narrated is ilm diraya. How authentic is this chain is ilm diraya.
Mm-hmm. But we're not looking at the hadith itself.
No, we don't
We're
like
just looking at the silsila.
Yes. So we don't care about this hadith, no. We just
Just
want to
the
make
person. The person.
No. Like the hadith itself, yes. I think I know where you guys are getting confused.
Dirayatan is just categorizing the hadith.
Categorizing the hadith.
Dirayatan also has a hadith.
Yes, so the hadith can be considered da'if because we don't know about Abdullah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
But on this chain, that hadith, like we say the Prophet somebody come and say, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam's beard, for example, was long, right? And somebody said, no, it wasn't that long, right? We find from Abdullah that yes, we follow up what Abdullah did and how Abdullah learned and where Abdullah get it, and it was confirmed that his beard was big, right? So ilm al-hadith riwayatan will put a stamp. The Prophet beard was big, right? And then we find another hadith saying that the Prophet's beard was not big, right? We verify that person and we find out that that person is weak. Then ilm al-hadith dirayatan will tell us that hadith is rejected.
From
Then
that person.
because of this person that we learn about. Then the ilm al-hadith riwayatan will stamp and say, no, the Prophet alayhi beard was not small, it was big. Yeah?
So riwayatan is just categorizing it into those three categories, right?
Actually, he's just
Is it authenticating the hadith itself, or is it just categorizing it?
categorizing the hadith.
Okay.
Categorizing the telling you, is this hadith qawl,
Yeah.
or is this hadith fi'l,
Mm-hmm.
or is this hadith hal?
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
That's it.
So diraya is
The authentication.
authenticating the hadith by verifying the hadith by
verifying
working on screening the narrator.
Okay.
Okay? You got it?
Yep.
I think the first one is more general. It's just very general. Right?
Actually, they are two different things. It's just, he wants to tell you that, for example, the misal he gives to you. فَإِنَّنَا نَبْحَثُ عَنْ we will find out, is this really, is the Dhatun Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam? Is this,
Focusing on the
is this how the Prophet was? And we put a screen and we say, oh yeah, this is how he was. Then we put that there. Okay, we agree that's how he was, right? How did we end up here? It's to look at the narrations, right? So that's all.
Okay.
I think it's
It's all the same thing, but they want to make sure they split it.
they make
Yes,
it like
they split it.
yeah.
And he'll give you a misal. So the ilm al-hadith dirayatan, it search the narrator
And what he narrated.
and what he narrated. Is this subject to be accepted or to be rejected. من حيث القبول والرد.
Both have the
قبول acceptance, رد rejection, right? مثال إذا وجدنا راويا فإنا نبحث هل هذا الراوي مقبول أم مردود. If you find a narrator, you don't find a person who say, hey, come here, you are rejected. It has to be a narrator. A narrator narrates something, right? So he said, if we find a narrator, we have to verify. فإنا نبحث, we will verify هل هذا الراوي, is this narrator مقبول, acceptable, or مردود, or rejectable.
Yes.
Yes. أما المروي فإنه يبحث فيما هو المقبول منه وما هو المردود. So المروي is you verify. If you reject this person, you go back and look at فإنه يبحث فيه ما هو المقبول منه وما هو المردود. But at the same time, the same person can narrate authentic hadith and narrate a weak hadith. Right?
So once you find out he
The same person can narrate a weak hadith and authentic hadith.
Depending on
Yep.
the chain of each hadith.
Yeah, so actually he can narrate a weak hadith and he is the reason for that hadith to be weak, and he can narrate a hadith that's authentic and he won't have a problem here. Yes. So then you need to be very careful. So you need to care what he narrated and himself. So is he gonna be totally cancelled,
well, he has a chance.
or he has some authentic on some
Fixed in.
hadith that went through him but and they're authentic? That's what they're saying. That's what they're saying here.
So for example, if he was known, let's say, a liar, for example, they find out he's a liar, can he still be acceptable?
Yes. At some point, he can be acceptable. The reason why you will find, they call it, makdhub is very difficult, but they call it wahm. Wahim.
Right.
Wahim is somebody who forgets in age. Right? So they will start with his age, where he started aging. They will have a problem with those hadith. Because they said maybe he forgot to narrate this. He forgot to say something that wasn't part of the hadith or wasn't even a hadith. So they will verify where his aging started, where his dementia started, right?
Yeah.
So from that point, they will not take all this hadith, but the hadith before will be taken. So then, what knowledge is teaching was that?
Diraya.
Diraya. They will tell you, oh, this person, before this age, from this age to this age, whatever he narrates is good. But from this age to this age, be careful. His hadith can be da'if. Right? And so Imam Ahmad, he has some issues with that. And at the end of his age, he used to have that forgetfulness. Or kana nasiyan, he used to forget. Or he used to wahim, he used to think that he said this or he didn't say this. Right?
What's another example of
That's
somebody?
not a liar, though.
As they said, why him?
Right. No, he was saying if a person was a liar, that's not really a liar.
So
That's
no,
just-
this is not a lie. But
Yeah.
then they will call and jarh wa ta'dil, they will call fulan kadhib. They said fulan is a liar. So whenever they put to a liar, and then they identify as a liar, they will say, they call something called. But before you to the liar, you go to the tadlis. Tadlis is, you narrated, right? To the Prophet ﷺ. You narrate this hadith, and then you're collecting the hadith, right? You narrate this hadith, you know this person is weak. Either you replace him with an authentic person, or you skip this person. Just to make sure that people don't know that this person is in this age, in this chain. The tadlis.
So
Yes.
you become a middle.
So this person become a mudallis if he is known by doing that. So he want to make sure this hadith is accepted, but if he mentioned this guy,
He knows he's not going to be.
that's it. This hadith is not accepted. But the hadith, this ilm al-hadith dirayatan will teach us what happened. He either made this to skip this guy, or he replaced this guy with another guy.
So they're going to have to find out.
They will find out.
Which one?
Every single.
They will find out every single one, and they will call this person as a mudallis.
He dropped one off.
He drops one off, hiding it. He dropped him hiding it. So if this person become mudallis, then the hadith is going to be mardud.
So I have a question. Sorry, why were they so strict? Because of at that time there were a lot of people who were trying.
There's a lot of people who fabricate hadith. A lot of them. If you go to Ilm al-Hadith, there is a Yahudi who was caught fabricated 3,000 hadith. All of them were caught. If you go to Silsilat al-Hadith al-Da'if al-Albani, makdhub. Any hadith that you say makdhub is a fabricated hadith.
So they know that person.
They know the person who did that. Makdhub. And you will find somebody who is a big Sufi, who is a big Ruhani, who is a well-known alim, he'll fabricate a hadith.
Yes, all this hadith.
Yes. So you don't. That's why they are not
They don't
nice.
play with that.
No, they're not nice. When it comes to jarh wa ta'adil, they are not nice. They cut you and they fix you, or they cut you and throw you there, and say he's a liar, or he's a fabricator, or he's a modifier. Like the hadith was supposed to be considered, so you modify the hadith by skipping a narrator, knowing if that narrator is in your line, you will not. This hadith will be accepted. And sometimes you will find it in conflicts. When a conflict is happening and somebody wants to prove something and they are so into that, so they want to bring a hadith that is related to that conflict. And they want to make sure they push that. And it pushed them to shaitan is not good. It pushed them to an age that they will find something to hide about the hadith, just authenticate the hadith. It's very fitna is not good, Sheikh.
They have a lot of state.
All these things happen in the times of fitna. Yes, fitna is not good.
So that time was time of a lot of fitna going on at that time.
Yeah, a lot of fitna, a lot of attacks, just like what happened today.
Yeah.
This is the biggest fitna. People are just talking.
Yeah.
People are somebody can just stand and say, "Oh, the Prophet said this," right? Somebody will answer a question and say, "Oh, yeah, the Prophet did it." You have no idea, right? So these things happen. Where used to be happened that. Don't think that it's a big. It's going to be like these people are so bad. No, it can happen to you and me. You want to prove something, you're in a position. You say the Prophet said that, and if you're in a position of knowledge, that's it. People will take it, and you can write about it, and people will find it in their books. So when these people who authenticate the hadith come, they have verified everything. And somebody may say, the hadith al-marfu' is, for example, this is chain. Suppose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And then this narrator is correct. This is correct. This is correct. But this guy, this is Sahabi. This is Muhammad, right? And this is Sahabi, right? So this person, this Tabi'i.
Tabi'i will tell you, say, from
Yep.
the Prophet.
Ani Nabi. And he never heard from the Nabi. So he skipped the Sahabi. So that's it. The Tabi'i cannot hear from the Prophet.
Yeah.
So where is the Sahabi?
They're going to have to find that out.
If we don't have any Sahabi, who is they call it marfu'. So the hadith was
Kind of
attached to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam by the Sahabi, by the Tabi'i. And Tabi'i, so the hadith al-marfu', most of it is not authentic. It's weak.
Because of that.
Yeah, because.
there has to be Sahabi there.
Yeah.
So it has to be because of the Sahabi is the one who can hear from the Prophet. So if you say the Prophet said, and you don't have, and if you go to the books, the Sufi books, all of them are hadith marfu'a. Not all of them. They are hadith marfu'a. They have this person authentic. They have this person, but then it becomes marfu'a. And marfu'a, what judgment are you going to give hadith marfu'a? Because, but some fuqaha they use it as a proof, and you will learn also that.
So then, like when that happens, we blame the person that the last person in the chain that's telling us as hadith, or do we is it on the tabi'i?
It's a tabi'i. It's the one who made the rafa'.
Yeah, that's the last person.
What do they call it? The Tabi'i is the one who's...
It's the same thing. Oh, no, yes, it's not possible.
It's even way...
No, that's going to be because you cannot skip 2 generations. So the Sahaba is a generation, the Tabi'in is a generation, Tabi' is a generation. So you cannot skip 2 generations.
Yeah, but do we blame that tabi'i, or do we blame the person that's telling?
No,
you?
the Tabi'i, because the person has no problem. But the problem is
the person that's telling you right now. That's
yes, no, he has no
now.
problem. because he learned from this person. He collected from this person. This person collected this from this person. But this person didn't give him the name of the Sahabi. He either didn't tell him, or we didn't find it. He can hear from the Sahabi, but he never give the name, for example. So the ilm al-hadith was hadith marfu' because we didn't find him.
If this guy is saying
That I heard from this
I
guy.
heard from this guy, but he told me he heard from this guy. What would
Yep.
you say? But he didn't, this guy didn't say anything.
So this guy said,
This guy said, I heard from this guy.
yes,
So he's saying this guy told me that he heard from
this guy.
Sahabi.
Yeah, that's he
It's
has.
acceptable.
Yes, so it has to be like this. So this is Muhammad, right?
Yes.
Israel, this Sahabi, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the narrator.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I heard from this person.
Uh-huh.
And this person told me he heard from this person.
Yes.
And this person is Tabi'i.
Yes.
He told me he heard from this Sahabi.
Yes.
And the Sahabi told him I heard from Muhammad. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Okay. So if but we don't have this
In-
hadith not talking.
No,
Sahabi
Sahabi
not-
has to talk.
Oh, he has to talk.
Yes. So Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said,
Yes.
the Sahabi heard of it.
Okay.
This guy heard from the Sahaba.
Yes.
This guy heard from the Tabi'i.
Right.
This guy heard from it. So that's how it's supposed to be.
So what do they label, like,
You will call him marfu', right?
do they label the tabi'i with a label, or they just call the whole hadith?
No, they will call the whole hadith.
Oh.
The Tabi can be thiqa, but the Tabi'i, they didn't find where the Tabi'i get this hadith from.
Okay. So like,
So if they don't have, they will tell you, okay, Tabi, you cancel.
yeah.
This
But,
hadith is so here,
I'm not, there's no harshness with the tabi'i.
no, the
right?
Tabi'i can be. Oh yeah, they call Tabi some Tabi names.
Mm.
Yes. So this Tabi'i, okay, or this Tabi'i can be okay, will be in these situations. Number one, he might not even know the Sahabi.
Yes.
Mm.
Number two, he might know the Sahabi, but he never told his student about the name of the Sahaba. So who cares? We don't care. If you don't tell the name, the hadith is called marfu'.
Mm.
So they don't harshly say, oh, no, they call it marfu'. So you can understand this hadith. We did not have any Sahabi who heard this hadith to this Tabi'i. But the Tabi'i said, it's from the Prophet Ali, and he insists.
Mm.
It's from the Prophet Ali. So tell the Sahabi, don't care what you said. It's about the Prophet Ali. You have no narrator, you have nothing here. Your hadith will consider marfu'.
Mm.
Another question. If they find this chain, this hadith is marfu'. But if they just search and they find another Sahabi who heard this,
Yes, so that happens. So the same hadith, right?
yeah,
We find this chain,
yeah.
not often. We have marfu', right? Another chain, we hold sahih.
Mm.
We have all. So this hadith, they call it sahihun li ghayrihi. So this hadith is authentic, but not by itself.
Okay.
The hadith, so that's why exactly this chain, ilm al-hadith dirayatan will identify this chain, will tell you this hadith, if this hadith is from, because sometimes the lafz al-hadith, the statement of the hadith can be different. So the ilm al-hadith dirayatan will tell you if this hadith that you're talking about is from Abdullah, it's marfu'.
Okay.
But if the same hadith you're talking about, if it is from Abdul Hafiz, it's authentic.
Because it's the chain where the problem is.
So this chain will be considered as a weak chain,
Mm.
particular about this hadith. But the same hadith will be considered authentic in another way. So they will call it sahihun li ghayrihi. In this hadith is authentic, but by attaching it to another chain.
Oh.
Yes.
This chain is authentic by attaching it to that.
Yes. So for example, I'm going to give an example. So you have Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And then you have a Sahabi here. You have a Tabi'i here. You have a Tabi'i here. You have a Tabi'i, right? And then you have another. And this is the hadith, right? Right? So now, Abdullah is weak. But Zakaria is authentic.
Mm.
This hadith is authentic. So, you said I narrated, this hadith was narrated from this person. From this person is weak. From this person, from the Prophet ﷺ. But the same generation of a person, we have another narration with the same generation. This guy's authentic. Authentic, authentic, authentic. So that's going to be sahih li ghayri. So this hadith will be attached. So this gap will be blocked by this guy. Okay? So, but if this guy was weak and this guy is weak, if you attach it together, they will fall. So the gap. So as long as the weakness is not in line, if the weakness is like can be covered, like this is weak but it's authentic, the same line, then the hadith can be sahih li that, sahih li ghayrihi.
So when you say they mean like the individual or they mean the hadith?
The hadith itself is authentic, but the chain. لغير الحديث. So this chain, this hadith is authentic by merging it with another hadith. Because of the chain of the other hadith makes the hadith authentic. Yes, لغير الحديث. Yes, so this hadith is authentic, but not by itself is not. But we cannot say it's weak, because we have a different chain for it. So that different chain, you put them together, you said, is authentic. But if you be one more specific, this hadith particularly, like for example, if somebody comes and says, طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ. Seeking knowledge is an obligation upon every believer, every Muslim, right? And then you have another hadith said, طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضٌ عَلى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ وَمُسْلِمَةٍ. Upon Muslimah. So the Muslimah, that ziyada, is not authentic. And it's the same hadith. So then we go to the chain. We say this chain, this guy is one who added this Muslimah. Ziyad, they call it Ziyad. This person who added this into the hadith, but it was not part of the hadith. So then the hadith will be authentic by removing that thing. By removing that tail of Muslimatin. Yeah. So
added by the rawi.
By the rawi. Or kullu bid'atin dalala finnar. Kullu dalalatin finnar is added. And they capture the person who added that.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. Kullu dalalatin finnar. Yes. Kullu bid'atin dalala is authentic. But kullu dalalatin finnar is not authentic. It's good to say, right?
Yeah,
but it wasn't said by the Prophet. It was added by a narrator. You'll find another.
So that is what I wasn't added in speech. I was attributed to the Prophet.
Yes,
Right, so
attributed by the Prophet.
So another question here. Can Sahabi be suspected? Sahabi.
No, yes, a Sahabi. Another thing. So, it's a correct. كل الصحابة عدول. So الحديث صحيح ما روي عن عدل ضابط ثقة. Hadith Sahih is the hadith that was narrated by Adl, a just person. Dhabit. Dhabit is somebody who, like Dhabit.
Protective?
Like Dhabit, protective. Like Dhabit is when you memorize Fatiha, the Dhabata Fatiha.
Okay.
You kept it, a keeper.
Keeper.
Yes. Dhabit, thiqa, trustworthy. So the Sahaba kullum udul. They're all trustworthy, Sahaba.
Okay.
But they can have contradiction between the Sahaba. They call it ikhtilaf al-Sahaba. If the Sahaba have differences in hadith, difference of statement, who should be chosen?
I think the one
That's an usul. That's an usul fiqh.
Usul fiqh.
Yes.
That's where you learn that.
Yes. It's an usul. Yes. So they call it هل قول الصحابي حجة أم لا? A statement of a Sahaba, is it
justifiable?
No, is it evidence or not? إن لم يخالفه صحابي مثله. If he is being contradicted by an equal rank of a Sahaba like him. Yes. So if the two Sahaba have contradiction, it becomes a problem. Who should be taken from?
What are they going to do?
They have to find a way of jama', or they have to authenticate. They have to find a way of jama', or one is wrong and one is right. Yes, they have to. Number one, they will see who's wrong and who's right. it's very hard to say this person is wrong and this person is right. It
Mhm.
has to be a way of this Sahaba heard it when it was abrogated, or this Sahaba heard it in a different time, or the Sahaba heard it in a different time. So for example, Aisha said, Man qala Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam bala qayman faqad kadhab. Whoever said that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam was urinating and stand, he's a liar. And Ibn Umar, he said, I saw him urinating and standing.
That's the problem.
That's a big problem because they're all in the same, almost the same level
Yeah.
of riwayah. So we have to find a way of combining them. That's a different knowledge. That's
Of
usul.
riwayah. So
Huh? Huh?
they're on the same level of riwayah. What do you mean?
What qawl al-sahabi is usul.
Always have your food.
Yeah. Qawl al-sahabi is the same rank as shara man qablana. The sharia of people before us.
Okay.
هل شرع من قبلنا شرع لنا أم لا? The sharia of the people before us, is our sharia or not? It's the same topic as قول الصحابي. هل قول الصحابي حجة أم لا? Yeah, but that is, we will learn in usul. That's,
Is it their proof or not?
Hmm?
Just because is that what it says?
Is
Is
it
the statements of that a proof or not?
yeah,
Sahaba
so,
proof or not?
yeah, so is قول الصحابي proof or not?
Mhm.
So it has to be verified. If a law, like, is very complicated here because, like, for example, when, and we'll talk about the usul fiqh, when you find differences between the Sahaba in terms of narrating something from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. One will say, I heard him saying this, one will say, no, I heard him saying this. So there's a lot of logistics to put together in order to say, oh,
It is more.
here. For example, Taraweeh,
Mm.
the rakat of Taraweeh. When some people pray 11, right?
Yeah.
Some people pray 13, some people pray, some people 20, some people pray 30, some people pray even 51. So all that is, yes, so all that is because of the narrations.
51 has a proof?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So all is who saw the Prophet alayhi salam in one night and how much he prayed, and that's it. He thinks that is the prayer of, that's the night prayer of the Prophet alayhi salam, and he hold on to that.
Mm.
That's it. So this is, they will just say what they know and what they saw. Yes. So the Prophet, like for example, the young person who came to the Prophet alayhi salam in the month of Ramadan, he said, can I kiss my wife in the month of Ramadan? He said, no. And then who was sitting there? And then they left. The person left. And an old man came, can I kiss my wife in the month of Ramadan? He said, yeah. You can do it.
Now they're like, oh,
Now you see, two things, but it's not a contradiction. We have to find a jam' between them. And jam' sometimes can be by looking at the condition.
conditions of the situation.
The ahwal, yes. The condition of the situation. Yes. So this is, it needs a lot of learning, a lot of tools in
A
order
lot of
to,
details.
lot of
and detail.
a lot of details in order to put them together. Yes. I think we took a long today. So we understand ilm al-hadith riwayah, ilm al-hadith dirayah.
No.
Ilm al-hadith riwayah focus on the ahwal, aqwal and af'al. The actions, the conditions, and the statements of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam. Dirayah is the person who narrated and what they narrated. Verify this person, investigate him, screen him, search him. Is he a trustworthy? And what he narrated, is it something that we should accept or reject? Okay? And then, نعم. So بهذا تعرف أن قبول الراوي لا يستلزم قبول المروي. So he said, accepting the rawi, accepting the narrator is not a condition of accepting what they narrated. Okay? لأن السند قد يكون رجاله ثقة عدول لكن قد يكون المتن شاذا. So he said, because of the hadith, matn is the sanad.
Mm-hmm.
It's the chain.
Yes, the sanad قد يكون رجاله, the chain قد يكون رجاله, the men on this chain can be ثقات, trusted,
Trustworthy.
or عدول, just. لكن قد يكون المتن شاذا, the matn,
Text.
the text can be shadh. You know shadh?
Like it's a rare.
Shadh is
Rare.
rare. Shadh is
Peculiar.
no. No, don't say anything. It's coming. It came, I forget about it. No, don't, I know it. It came, and you talk and it went back.
Not bad.
SubhanAllah, it reminded me of when the Prophet said,
Yes. Yeah.
Allah, I know it. Narrow.
Narrow.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. Shadh is narrow.
So what's narrow?
Like, you will only find this hadith with one narrator who, like, barely read hadith.
Mm.
And you will not find this hadith, no one ever heard about this hadith from the Prophet except him.
Mm.
That's shadh. Yeah, narrow, they call it narrow. Yeah, it's narrow.
It's a narrow
Yeah.
narration.
So this hadith, like for example, take mutawatir. Mutawatir is the most popular hadith. Is ma rawahu akthar min 70 sahabi. Is the hadith that more than 70 sahaba narrated. Right?
Mm.
That's it. So shadh is narrow narration. Like, wow, there's no, like, that's why they said narrow opinion in fiqh. هذا رأي شاذ. We don't know about the fiqh. هذا رأي شاذ. You know, this is a narrow opinion, which means he is the only one who heard it,
Like an exclusive opinion.
and they cannot say he's not trustworthy. But they have a lot of questions mark about it.
Mm.
Why? Why is he the only one who heard this hadith? Right? So they become shadh.
Mm.
Has become hadith shadh. He said if the guy is good, all the rijals are good and everything, the hadith can be shadh.
Mm.
Hadith shadh, a narrow hadith, you know, أو معلعل. معلعل is the hadith that they call it معلعل. علة.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of defect.
It's a lot of defect in the hadith. A lot of defect that can. Are you sure? It feels like. So that hadith, they will not. Has a problem. Okay, they will not say it's da'if. They say it's weak, but they have a name for it. So when you hear the hadith, هذا hadith mu'al'al. Okay, this hadith mu'al'al. I know what mu'al'al means. And we know all about those things. Hadith shadh. What hadith shadh means?
When they say odd.
Odd.
Mm.
It's
Oh,
odd.
there we go. Okay, that makes sense.
But if you eat odd, it's good.
Yeah.
But then, you know, when you know who told me the narrow? Suhaib.
What?
Oh yeah.
He's gonna give a translation. Narrow. I didn't even understand what narrow is. Wrote it for me. Narrow. Odd is witr.
No, like this is odd
No,
and like
no,
not
it's
like
two-
odd
odd
was
is like-
one.
Odd is
Odd was like strange.
Yeah,
Strange.
Strange, yeah.
like narrow, strange. I remember he said strange.
Okay.
Narrow, strange, odd. Yes, odd.
Mhm.
Odd, yeah.
Like this hadith is
Very
very.
odd. And also this is bizarre, but I don't know. Bizarre.
Yeah, bizarre.
Like,
It's
bizarre.
more.
It's
It's
kind of
more.
more like.
It's more extreme.
Very
Yeah,
weird.
it's more
Weird.
strange. Yeah, we say odd or narrow or, but we're not talking about it. Is
That's what I said. Peculiar. Like,
peculiar.
you
as-
look
is
at it
part
like
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's narrow. It's odd. Yeah, but it's odd is very. It's very.
Odd is very
Odd is good. Odd is good.
Odd is good. So you understand it. Mu'ala'al also is the same. The hadith that has a lot of illah.
like in terms of what the defects in terms of.
In terms of what, in terms of the text of the
Yeah,
hadith
too good,
itself.
too good to be true.
All the rijal can be good in the chain, but what they brought, the text that they brought, really, did the Prophet say
Like
this?
how come?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like how come nobody else heard it? Something like.
No. That's
Or just doesn't sound like something
shad.
he would've
That's
said.
a shad.
That's shad. Mu'al'al is. Did he say that?
Like what's an example?
Like for example, hadith mu'al'al. Do I, in my head, do I have hadith mu'al'al right now?
It's like the one he said. Aisha said, "Rasul I never saw my aura," something like that.
Is it?
Like I never saw his aura. Aisha said, I maybe that's Aisha.
I've heard that too, but I don't know the status of that one.
Aisha said, "I have never seen the aura of the Prophet."
Yeah, that's hadith. Sahih.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hadith sahih. Yeah, out of respect.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Out of respect, okay.
yeah, yeah.
Out of respect but like people who like have Jama'ah, all these things, like,
Yeah, that is a different bab. That actually, yeah, that's a different
it's
bab.
very, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, Aisha says something out of respect a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Amar Marwi.
So, Mu'al'al, Al being hadith Mu'al'al. That you will hear you say, did he say this? نعم. But I'll bring example. فحينئذ لا نقبله. He said, in this case, if the hadith is shadh, but all the chain is authentic, even though, but this hadith will not accept it. Yes, because the hadith has shudud in it, and it has, you know what they call shadh, shudud. The gay and lesbians, they call them shadh. Shudud.
Strange.
They're strange.
Strange, yeah.
Strange, actually strange. كما أنه أحيانا لا يكون رجال السند يصلون إلى حد القبول والثقة ولكن الحديث نفسه يكون مقبولا وذلك نعم. He said also you can find the chain did not reach to the level of acceptance, the chain, but the hadith can be accepted.
Although the hadith is
Would that be like Hassan or?
Yeah, so وذلك لأن له شواهد من الكتاب والسنة because it has principle, it has witnesses from the Quran and the Sunnah, general witnesses from the Quran and the Sunnah.
But they'll put
قواعد
it.
الشريعة تؤيده, or the principle of Sharia is supporting that.
But will it still label as authentic, or they have a specific name for it?
That hadith will be sometimes Hasan or Maqbool.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Accepted or?
Accepted.
Okay.
So one of the conditions, because if that hadith, that can be like in a lower level, that's why they said the ulama, they divided ulama hadith into two categories. One said we only use hadith sahih. One said we can use hadith da'if. But even the one who said we can use hadith da'if, hadith, they said with four conditions. One is أن لا يكون الضعف شديدا. The weakness of the hadith should not be severe, right? And يندرج تحت أصل شرعي. It has to be under a fundamental principle, and that's what he's saying here. If this hadith is, we don't have any strong foundation for what they said right now, it's going to be rejected right away, because of, and also أن لا يعتقد عند العمل به أنه ثبت عن النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام. You should not confirm certainly that it was done by the Prophet, or said by the Prophet, or this about the Prophet. So you have to stay in that level. And then أن يستعمل في فضل الأعمال. It has to be only used in فضل الأعمال. فضل الأعمال is
general.
like action with virtues, right? So that's what they said. The group who said we can use a weak hadith. If you bring all these conditions in a weak hadith, you don't need it, right? So he said that they're explaining the marwi and the rawi. The rawi can be rejected by himself, right? What he narrated can be rejected. But also the rawi can be weak, but what he narrated can be accepted by having other support from other chains, or from the Quran, the Sunnah, or from even the Qawaid Sharia, the Islamic foundations, right? But also the hadith can be rejected, even though the rawi thiqa is trustworthy and all the chain is good, but because of the hadith is strange, or the hadith has a lot of question marks. That's mu'allal, question mark. Yes.
So
then,
suspicious.
Suspicious, yeah.
Okay.
How does that work though? If everybody in the chain
it's authentic.
is authentic, but
what they said has question mark. I'll bring you hadith al-mu'allal now.
because everybody's authentic, how does that?
But what they said, the reason why what they said is kind of questioning some of the principles of the Sharia. Yeah.
Okay.
Or it can go against a major principle.
Okay, that makes sense.
So
Yeah.
can they say then there must be something wrong, something wrong happened in the chain? Is that
No, the
is that
chain
what-
can, that's what he said. The chain can be confirmed,
Mhm.
authentic, but the narration can have some question mark.
So who would they link this issue to?
No, that's why they just make the judgment on the
They
text.
don't check
No.
the.
Oh, so it is, okay.
Yeah, that's why the Quran says da'if, they said ma'al al.
Because
Has a lot of
they
question.
cannot question these people are
Yes,
good.
all of them, actually not just people are good,
Mm.
but the way they narrated, verifying the hadith, verifying the man, is a very, very unique process. Like even they will go even where you write the hadith, where you get the hadith, who you heard from the hadith from, it has to be confirmed that you heard this
So
hadith
they-
from this
hadith-
person.
Who were there at that time? What
Yes.
they were-
They have to find a way to confirm this hadith. Yes, it was confirmed that this mail was delivered to this person and it was certified in mail, right? You sign it. That, no doubt about it. No doubt about that. No doubt about that. So, إذن فائدة علم المصطلح الحديث هو معرفة ما يقبل وما يرد من الحديث. So then, he's giving you the general قاعدة,
Summary.
the general summary. He said, مصطلح الحديث, the مصطلح itself, is knowledge. معرفة ما يقبل is to know what should be accepted and what should be rejected from the hadith. وهذا مهم جدا مهم بحد ذاته. This itself is important. To know that this hadith is accepted and is rejected. لأن الأحكام الشرعية مبنية على ثبوت الدليل وعدمه. Because of the أحكام الشريعة, the Sharia rules are built upon what is confirmed in the dalil, in the proof, وعدمه, and what was rejected. وصحته وضعفه, authentic, and also what was authentic and what was weak. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
This is علم الحديث. So this is علم الحديث. Then we go to the شرح. بسم الله. نعم. To the مؤلف. Good. So I'll ask you.